Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to be discussing patch 1.3 and Voice of the People in a pseudo-review slash pseudo-response to a lot of controversy. In this video we're going to be talking about first, briefly covering some of the content that is present in both patch 1.3 and Voice of the People at large. Then we are going to be talking about the poor reception, the controversy of the game, and I've seen some content creators creating some things out there and talking about it, and I kind of don't necessarily agree with them, and so this is the main thrust of why I'm creating this video. And then we'll talk about a good faith sort of effort in my mind by Paradox to try and actually improve the way that they release content in what I think is a very substantive way. And then finally we're going to talk about, should I buy this game? Okay, so the content that's present is, let's just cover the 1.3 content first. There's kind of three really big things that have been changed. First, revolutions are greatly improved. I think that they play a lot better. Probably my favorite thing about revolutions is now they play this enormously loud sound when they start brewing, so you don't get any more surprise revolutions bending you over, and so that is quite nice. Also, there's this new agitator mechanic, also this UI is improved, that has, in my mind, a lot of, it's a nice scaffold for the future. It doesn't seem hyper, like interactive, but there's now like granting leadership, you can exile these dissidents, you can recruit people to your country, and this sort of stuff, which gives a lot more of a personal feel. And there's also a change to how law passing now works, and these changes I think are overall pretty good, and a great improvement on the law passing mechanic. In Voice of the People, there's actually very, very little content. There is journal entries primarily for France, but also Belle Epoque, Voice of the People, Voice of the People. Also, there are some that are universally applicable, but for the most part, there's a few journal entries, there's a few events, and there's 60 historical agitators. Now, I'm not sure I even like the historical agitators, because they are not balanced. They are primarily European or American or these sorts of things, at least from what I have seen, and they are not balanced in such a way that now you have an enormous advantage when you're playing European because you have access to more of these agitators as a result of the 60 agitator. I believe it's giving you more. I'm not 100% sure, but it is also actually super cool to be able to, see, these people that you know in history. And so from a flavor perspective, I like it. From a gameplay perspective, if it creates this weird asymmetry between Western and Eastern, cultures as a result of there being, more built out information for a Western culture, in their, social milieu, which this game is present in, I'm not a fan of that. But that's the content. And let's talk about the controversy now. So Voice of the People, for those of you who don't know, is getting shellacked in the reviews. Mostly negative. And it is, I think that Voice of the People itself has basically no essential content, is the problem. There's basically nothing in this DLC that you absolutely need to play, and it's primarily a France thing. On top of the extra agitators, there's really not a whole lot. You get the 60 agitators, the special agitator interactions. I believe you get access to even in vanilla. You get the France stuff. You get some art, and that's it. And this is not. This is not a $15 type of expansion. And so I think that the feedback to some extent is fair. But here's the thing. I think if you evaluate it in a vacuum, completely divorced from, all the content that's present in 1.3, all this stuff that is included in the base game just for free in 1.3, if you include all of this, if you evaluate it devoid of this, I think you're making not a very good faith evaluation. I think in your mind, you should conceptually be including, to some degree, all the 1.3 content, the presence of the agitators, the fixing of the law passing changes, and also the changes to revolutions. I think you should be considering all of these when evaluating it, which is perhaps not fair. But in the DLC itself, there's actually very little essential content. Basically no essential content. And so, jumping back into the browser, at least for me, let's talk about the good faith effort by Paradox. And so, here's some criticisms of the DLC, just to kind of add on to the controversy. You were not satisfied with the narrative content included in Voice of the People. Yeah, there's not a lot of it, and it's not, I don't know, it seems pretty medium. I played France, and I was like, okay. We got the undead Napoleon Bonaparte. I guess there was that. In particular, we see the following weak points in some of the journal entries included in the DLC. Too passive, not providing enough of a challenge, detached from the rest of the game's systems. Yeah, they really just feel like a weird sort of side quest that's really not, you know, entrenching itself in terms of how the game plays out, and not enough interactions with countries outside of France. I haven't played a full run with a country outside of France, but this, in my mind, kind of tracks, I imagine. So let's talk about the good faith effort by Paradox, because I actually don't think, I don't think they necessarily deserve this, but I think that Paradox is changing the way that they're doing something, or at least they have said they are, and they appear to be, and I think that alongside that, we should also change the way we evaluate DLC, if we are to be responsible consumers. Yuck. Responsible consumers. And that's this paragraph here, which was in Dev Diary 87. After the release, we received feedback suggesting that Update 1.3, released alongside Voice of the People, has had a greater impact than the DLC itself. 100%. This is partially because we needed to introduce a significant number of new elements to support the Agitators and revamp the Revolution system. However, the main reason for this perception is our approach to DLC development, where we don't want to lock essential mechanics behind paywalls. For those of you who have never played Europa Universalis 4, if you've ever tried to get your friend in the game, it's actually just brutal because you actually need like all the DLC, because a lot of essential elements are locked behind paywalls, and so it creates this system that is like inbred, or the player base that is inbred, because you need all this DLC to be able to play. And what they're saying here is they're like, we don't want this to be the case. But what this is going to mean is that every single DLC is going to feel like it doesn't have a lot of content in it if everything that's essential that comes out with the patch is just going to be in the patch and not in the DLC. Let's continue. Mechanics spread over multiple DLCs tend to fragment the community. This is exactly what I'm talking about. It's impossible to get someone into Europa Universalis 4 because the game is unplayable in vanilla. Makes mod management harder. Another thing, you have to make a game that's stable with mixing and matching DLCs, which also presents more difficulties for them, which are going to slow them down in their ability to develop the game, complicates new features on top of old ones, and could cause features to become unbalanced over time. As an example of this approach, based on your feedback, we elected to include the Exiles mechanic in the free update rather than the DLC to address concerns about future game balance. While there is a risk that this reduces the perceived value of the DLC, I think it does. It ensures that the core gameplay experience remains intact and allows for future expansions without limitations. So, you know, I think that they are being very forward-thinking here, and they have chosen intentionally to not include a lot of stuff you know, in the actual DLC itself, which is a very forward-thinking thing, where they are thinking of the game health over the course of, you know, 5 and 10 years, this sort of thing, rather than, you know, trying to extract as much as possible. If you're going to be critical of a company, I think you should be critical of them for trying to extract as much value out of consumers on, like, a very short-term basis as possible. Because they need money to engage in development. What they appear to be doing is some sort of a good faith effort to, you know, extract money over long-term and provide more value, and also just thinking long-term. And it's not an extractive model. Right? Extractive would be locking essential things behind these, like making it impossible to exile agitators and having agitators just like absolutely wreck your country, like in terms of revolutions, you know? Like if we had like we can't exile the agitators, and there's a significant gameplay difference because we just get bricked by super revolutions because we can't exile agitators. If this was present, they would be kind of forcing us to buy the game in a sort of sense. They are not doing that. They are doing the opposite of that. They are giving us basically everything for free. And so, what about the question, should I buy it? Should I buy this game? I think the answer is no, if you are evaluating it just from this sort of consumer idea is the game worth the money, or is the DLC worth the money? The answer is no. And it's just super, super no. It couldn't be more no. If you're evaluating it just on the basis of like how much does this DLC add, God no. Of course no. Very much not. Don't buy it. But I think that a good faith response to what Paradox is doing here, which I think that everyone prefers a system where it's like this. You know, it's like a prisoner's dilemma sort of thing, where we would prefer that the system be like this, and then people buy the DLC if they like the game, and Paradox would prefer that people just buy the DLC, but this helps us to, develop communities over time and is very forward-thinking. This is what Paradox is doing with their new DLC strategy. And I think it's good faith effort to engage us, the consumer, in a what I think is a positive way. And I think that if you're thinking of it in this way, you should think to yourself, what you should do is you should play 1.3. If you like 1.3, or if you're playing a lot of Victoria and you're enjoying yourself, and it is occupying a large percentage of your overall game playing time, then perhaps it should occupy a large percentage of your, game spending. If Victoria 3 is enjoyable and you just play I recommend playing on 1.3 without buying it. If you enjoy 1.3, then I think as a consumer you should buy it. Buy Voice of the People. Not because the content in it is stellar, but because you are supporting the ongoing development of the game when the developers are clearly making a good faith effort to give you stuff for free. And then this way, there's more long-term health to the game. And in a sense, they're letting you test the features. And if you think the features blow, then don't buy it, right? I think that, to be honest, it's middling. This is probably a below par, even if you include 1.3. This is probably below par, but not way below par. It's okay. It updates some things. It makes some things better. It doesn't break it. It's not like Leviathan. And so, for me, considering I play a lot of Victoria 3, this has been a delightful breath of fresh air. But overall, I would say that, if you are playing a lot of Victoria 3, you should buy the patch, or you should buy this. If you have a gameplay budget that... in terms of a percentage of the amount of hours you're playing, let's say you have a $100 budget. If you're playing 50% of your hours in this game, I think you should buy this. Even if you think that this patch doesn't add very much. And if you are completely unsure, then don't buy this at all. This is not very essential. Also, if you're on an Uber budget, don't buy this. That's fine. But I think that one should kind of engage in this sort of... The developers are reaching out to us in a productive way, and I think that it would be good if the consumers of this game kind of did the same thing. And so everyone's very sensationalistic and mostly negative, and they're either uber positive or uber negative, and it's just it's very insipid. This is I think it's very middling. I think it's below average, and then other than that, it does add stuff. I also suspect that the team for Victoria 3 is a lot smaller than the team for Hoey or EU4, and that we cannot expect to see the same scope of changes. And this means perhaps we should spend less money on the DLC, and maybe that's fair. But yeah. Now there is one final caveat I have to really put in, and that is this was included in kind of the expansion pass that you get that was present on game release. And so, to some extent, this might just be a layup. This might just be them trying to, win points when they've already really collected a lot of the money from the, expansion pass bundle. If they start paywalling a bunch of essential features following this, I will be very upset. Because that will be indicating to me that, okay, first of all, maybe they actually just had a lack of success because they absolutely got hosed and nobody bought this and they actually need to do this. Yeah, thanks for your generous donation, Grand Edition owners, basically. So, if this happens, and they swap to their, what in my mind was an extractive model in EU4, I will be very upset with, having paid for Voice of the People. Because there's basically nothing in it. And so if it's just, this good faith sort type of layup, because a bunch of people have already paid for it, then I will be upset. But other than that, I think Voice of the People is kind of middling. I don't think it is something to, if you haven't been playing Victoria 3, I don't think it's something like, you need to come back, this is the bee's knees. It's not like that. They haven't fixed the two, very worst things in the game, which are, the military and diplomacy, which would be my biggest gripe. It's not that this patch is bad. It's that the aim was wrong. The aim was wrong. They aimed at the wrong thing. They should have fixed diplomacy or the other stuff. But at the risk of rambling any more than this, I'm going to conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Also, feel free to discuss below your opinions on If I'm way wrong on how good or bad this patch is, I mean, I think it's below par, but not like a 1 or something like that. I think it's like a 4.5, where you're actually like rating average at a 5. I think that, or maybe 4, something like that. I think that, you know, if you also want to discuss how I'm viewing how one should be a consumer for these types of products, especially given, you know, the changes that are occurring, feel free to put that in. And other than that, you know, have a good day and this sort of thing.